Kelly Dragoo. I'm a public affairs specialist for Social Security. I work out of the downtown Cincinnati office. I've been with Social Security about 15 years. My job is to provide outreach and education to people about Social Security benefits. I work for all of the offices in Central and Southern Ohio. So this is what I do. I don't actually take applications anymore. I used to do that, but I don't do that anymore. Now I just kind of go out and provide the education about how to apply, what our benefits are, what the nuances are between different types of benefits, retirement, disability, survivor, Medicare, all of that kind of good stuff. So sometimes I have a partner with me that helps me talk, Teresa Busher. So sometimes you may see her. From time to time, she and I both kind of cover the same area, territory, if you will, Southern and Central Ohio, and a little bit of Southeastern Indiana as well. So tonight, I'm going to do some slides for you all about the differences between SSI and SSDI. The powers that be made those acronyms very similar, but the two programs couldn't be any more different. You know, they're on, if you looked at a circle, they're like a 180 from each other. One's on this side, and one's on this side. They're very, very different, but the acronyms sound like each other. So I'll try and show you the differences between those two to help you make sense of those. I always have to give this disclaimer that the information that I'm providing is accurate as of now, November 2023. But as you know, rules can change and numbers can change and all that good stuff. So if you're looking at these slides down the road, you know, just be sure that you're always making sure you've got the most up-to-date information from our website. Most of the time, the policies don't change, but some of the numbers can change that we give. And then, of course, our participation in this presentation doesn't constitute our endorsement of one agency or organization over another. We love everybody. So we give these presentations freely to everybody that asks us. We used to be able to come out in person from time to time, and sometimes we still can, but it's been a while since we've been out to any of the Hamilton County sites. Maybe one day we'll get back out there again, but at least we have this avenue of the virtual presentations, which frankly is kind of nice. At least you can sit in the comfort of your own home and you know, watch me here rather than have to drive out in the, I was going to say in the cold, but it's still warm, isn't it? So anyway, make sure you're not sharing any personal information with us tonight either. Don't yell out any personal Social Security numbers or dates of birth or anything. Don't type anything like that into chat. Don't tell me any of that over voice or anything like that. I think I heard that Sean just recorded this. So again, if you know this, everything we do is kept forever now. So don't put any of that out there. Here's what the agenda looks like. First thing I'm going to do is talk about how to get help from us and using the My Social Security account. We always go through that information. So for any of you who have listened to our presentations before, hopefully it's old news to you. And then I'll go through the differences between SSI and SSDI and talk about eligibility criteria for those, the application process and the disability determination process. And then just a little bit about post-eligibility and what happens after somebody is getting benefits from Social Security. If we went into too much of that, we'd have to stay on here for another couple of hours. So you can only just barely touch on that a little bit. So first things first, how to get help from us. The best way is to go on our website. So www.ssa.gov. Seeing that you're all online watching a Zoom webinar today, that means you're most pretty savvy with the internet. So try the website first. You can apply for benefits there. You can research benefits, get all of our publications, download forms that you may need. Lots of information can be done online. You can save yourself a lot of time from driving to an office and waiting in line or calling the 800 number and sitting on hold. If you have a My Social Security account, you can do a lot of things through that. Once we've established one of those accounts for you, then we've been able to digitally identify you so you can get proof of your benefits. You can replace Social Security cards, get replacement Medicare cards, update address, a direct deposit. You can check the status of your application if you've just recently applied. You can file for appeals. Lots of information can be done through the My Social Security account. If you are somebody's representative payee who gets benefits from Social Security, you use your own My Social Security account and you can do business for that person getting benefits. So if you need to report the fact that they work, you can do that through your own account to us. If you need to get proof of their benefits for them, you can do that through your own My Social Security account. So check that out. It's a very useful tool. And if you don't get any benefits and you're just curious about what would you get one day when you retire or became disabled, or what if you died? What would your family get? You can go look at your Social Security statement and find out all that information there. If you don't want to do anything online, that's fine. Call our national toll-free number. Our staff will answer those phones Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. There will be a wait, so be prepared to wait on hold a good half hour or more. 1-800-772-1213. You'll have less of a wait, I'm told, if you call later in the month and if you call later in the week. So don't call first thing on a Monday morning on the first of the month, or you will be on hold a long time. Local offices are open Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. So you are allowed to walk into an office, but keep in mind that most offices do not have staff that are available to wait on people who walk in without an appointment. So although they might wait on you long enough to find out why you're there, they probably will just schedule you an appointment for a future day. So if you're there to apply for a benefit, they're probably going to tell you that they need to give you an appointment. If you're just there to replace a Social Security card or drop off paperwork or change your address or talk about an overpayment, something like that, then they usually will just see you while you're there. But if you're there to actually apply for a disability benefit or a retirement benefit or something like that, they're going to make you an appointment usually for a future day. So just keep that in mind. If you don't know where the local offices are, you can look it up. We've got a locator on our website, ssa.gov/locator. If you do not have a My Social Security account and everything I just talked about sounded like gobbledygook, the My Social Security accounts are what you can create online that are your private portal into doing business with Social Security. So this is where you get all of your private information about what your benefits will be one day from Social Security. And then once you get benefits, this is how you can manage your benefits. So it's a free account. Anybody 18 or older with an email address and a Social Security number can create one of these. Younger people oftentimes have difficulty because, again, if you're doing this online, we are digitally identifying people. And that means we are looking in the background through credit bureaus and different things along those lines. And if you don't have much of a credit history, we may not be able to digitally identify you. So you may have difficulty if you are a younger person. Older people that have credit established and you have addresses in your name and that sort of thing, you shouldn't have any problem. But if you do have difficulty, walk into a local office with your driver's license or your state ID, and they can certainly help you create one of these accounts. And once you have them, then you can do so many things online without having to call or go into an office. I also just wanted to share information about Social Security cards. Whether you want to replace a card that you already have, you know, maybe your own card has been lost or torn, or maybe you know somebody that has never gotten a card before. That usually doesn't happen these days. We usually get enumerated when we are born, but there are people who don't have a number. You can do all of this online. So some people can just start the process online. Other people can start it and finish the process online. Some people will be able to start and have to actually come into the offices to provide proof of certain things like their identity or a name change or citizenship. Other people may be able to finish the entire process online because they have a My Social Security account and they're not doing anything but replacing an existing card where there's no changes to be made. So use our online card replacement screener to find out if you have to go into an office, and if you do, what is needed. Do that before you ever walk into an office. So many times people go in, wait in line for an hour, only to find out they didn't even bring what they needed. And then they get really upset because they have to come back and do that all over again. So don't do that. Go online first and fill out the application. See if you actually even need to go in, and if you do, what you need. And we have just implemented a way for you to now schedule your own appointment. So if you do have to go in, you can actually make an appointment online for a date and a time at an office closest to you, that you can walk in with your application and that evidence and finish the process. So it'll help you get things done a lot quicker, helps our offices know how many people are walking in and when, so that we can staff better. It's all around a good thing. All right, with all those public service announcements out of the way, let's talk about disability benefits. So Social Security administers two different disability programs. So there's the Title II program of the Social Security Act, and there's the Title 16 program of the Social Security Act. So Title II is what you see in the blue bubble. That is Social Security Disability Insurance, or SSDI. And then Title 16 is in the red bubble. That is SSI, Supplemental Security Income. So again, the acronyms sound similar, but they are very different programs. Title II, or SSDI, is insurance. It has the name insurance in its name. And that is because this is a benefit that you work for. You work, you pay taxes on your wages, and you earn insurance when you become disabled. And that is how you get this benefit. You also earn credits towards your insurance for Medicare. So that's how you get Medicare eligibility. Title 16, on the other hand, is SSI, Supplemental Security Income. This is not a benefit you get because you have worked. In fact, you never have to work a day in your life to get SSI. So this is why you see children getting SSI, because most children have never worked before. So they don't have insurance to get SSDI benefits. So SSI is for people who have limited income, limited resources, and they are either 65 or older, or they have been found to be disabled by Social Security. Once you get SSI in Ohio, you also get Medicaid. So we automatically let Job and Family Services know through a data share that somebody's been found eligible for SSI, and then Job and Family Services starts the Medicaid eligibility. That way somebody doesn't have to leave our agency and go to their agency to apply for Medicaid. Can you please put your microphones on mute? Sounds like somebody is not on mute. Or Sean, can you take care of that for me? Okay. So then let's move forward here. So who can get disability under Social Security? Well, different people can get disability depending upon whether they are getting it under Title II of the Social Security Act or Title 16 of the Social Security Act. So again, whether we're talking about SSDI or SSI. So if we're talking about under Title II of the Social Security Act, typically 3 different categories of individuals will qualify. That's a disabled insured worker who is under their full retirement age, or an individual that's disabled since childhood who is a dependent of a parent who is entitled to either Title II disability or retirement for themselves, or is deceased. And so there's a dependent of somebody that is deceased that died insured for benefits under SSDI, or a disabled widow or widower that's between the age of 50 and 60 if the deceased spouse was insured under Social Security. So we're looking at many different people when they apply for SSDI or Title II benefits. Under Title 16 of the Social Security Act, Like I mentioned on the last slide, adults and children that are under the age of 18 who have limited income and resources can get payments based on disability or blindness. For some adults that are over 65, then we don't have to find them to be disabled or blind. They simply need to have the age requirement as well as limited income, limited resources. So regardless of whether somebody is applying for SSI or SSDI, adults have to be unable to engage in what's called substantial gainful activity because of a medically determined physical or mental impairment that has lasted or is expected to last. Catherine, can you put yourself on mute, please? So the medical conditions need to last or be expected to last for at least a year or expected to result in death. So this is Social Security's definition of disability for all adults. You have to have a medical condition that keeps you from working for at least a year, or your condition is expected to result in death. So the term substantial gainful activity, or SGA, is something we use at Social Security to describe somebody's level of work activity. This year, that means somebody making more than $1,470 per month, $2,460 per month if they are blind. Now, next year, those numbers go up. In 2024, if you make more than $1,550 per month or $2,590 per month if somebody is blind, then that would demonstrate substantial gainful activity. So what that means is if you are working and you are earning at least that amount of money, you will not be found to be disabled by Social Security, regardless of what kind of medical condition that you have. So you may very well have a medical condition that would meet a listing of a disability by Social Security, but you won't meet our definition of disability if you're able to work and earn what is considered substantial gainful activity. Now that definition applies to everybody that's 18 or older. For children, the definition is slightly tweaked. So for children, we're not looking at can they go to work and earn a certain amount of money. A child that's under the age of 18 can be considered disabled if they meet a medically determinable physical or mental impairment that causes marked and severe functional limitations that, again, can be expected to cause death or has lasted or can be expected to last for at least a year. Social Security will consider evidence from all sources, medical and non-medical, to assess the extent to which that child claimant's impairments affect their ability to function when the child is compared to other children of the same age who don't have the impairment. So the definition is just slightly different for children, but their condition still has to last at least a year or expect to be lasting at least a year or is expected to result in their death. So it's pretty cut and dry, our definition. There's no temporary decision or partial disability. But let's first talk about SSI, and then we'll move on to SSDI. So let's first break down some eligibility criteria with SSI. But first of all, there is a maximum amount of money that somebody can get when they get SSI. An individual this year can get no more than $914 per month. That's a federal benefit rate that's set by Congress every year. $943 is the maximum next year. So you never see anybody getting more than that when they get only SSI. Some people get even less than that, and that's based upon, do they have other income that's bringing that number down, or do they live in a living arrangement that requires us to reduce how much we pay them from SSI? So there are some factors that are involved in determining how much we pay somebody an SSI benefit. To be eligible for SSI, somebody has to have limited income. They have to have very, very few resources. That number is extremely low. Somebody has to be at least 65 or older, or they have to be totally or partially blind, or they have to have a medical condition that if they are an adult, keeps them from working, or if they are a child, causes marked and severe functional limitations that is expected to last at least a year or result in their death. Again, meeting that definition of disability for Social Security. Now, for children, the income and the assets of not only the child, but also the parents that they live with in the same household are looked at. So I'll talk about that in a minute. So children could be very well disabled, but if they live in households that are not considered low income, limited resources, they may not qualify for SSI. So not only is only the child's income and resources looked at, but so is their parents' income and resources when they live in the same home. So that's why you see a lot of children are not eligible until they reach adulthood, and that's the age of 18, because at age 18, we no longer consider mom and or dad's income and resources when we're talking about SSI, because they're no longer a child for SSI. And I'll talk about that a little bit here in a minute. So SSI eligibility is based on a three-legged stool. We look at person's income, resources, and living arrangement. So let's break down each one of those. When we talk about income, we are factoring in all kinds of income that somebody may get when we are determining how much can we pay somebody from an SSI benefit. Do they have wages? Do they have net earnings from self-employment? Do they get unearned income? Maybe they have an SSA benefit that they get. Maybe they get a veteran's benefit. Maybe they're on unemployment. Maybe they get a big interest payment every month from some money in a bank account somewhere, or an annuity. Maybe there's pension income they get. Or maybe they have a generous family or friend that gives them money every month. Any income a person gets is considered and countable when we are talking about, can a person receive SSI? Gross income is always used when we are calculating how much to pay SSI. And any countable income can reduce the amount somebody gets in SSI, and in fact could zero it out altogether. So again, that starting amount is that $914 a month, but some people get some of that or very little of that, if anything of that. So some people may very well be disabled, but they don't get very much, if any, SSI because they have other income from another source. When children live with their parents and they are under the age of 18, we must consider the income from the parents that they live with when we determine the eligibility for that child. When somebody that is an adult who is married lives with their spouse, we must consider the income of that spouse they live with when they are applying for SSI. If somebody is a non-citizen and has a sponsor, we must consider the income of that sponsor when we are determining the eligibility for that non-citizen's SSI payment. So not only are we looking at the applicant, whether it's a child or an adult, but we are also looking at the income of certain other people in that person's life if they share households with them, to determine whether or not we can pay them SSI. So if somebody's married, we're going to be looking at their spouse if they live together. If somebody's under the age of 18, we will be looking at their parental income, including step-parents. And if somebody's a non-citizen, we're going to be looking at their sponsors to determine what kind of income that sponsor has. So that's called deeming, and that does come into play with SSI. When we're talking about specifically children and how we deem income from a parent, this happens when a child is under the age of 18 and not married and living in the same home with their parent or their step-parent. We will consider a portion of the parent's income as if it was available to the child. Now, we don't consider all of their income. There is a chart out there that you can find in our publications that talks about deeming, and so we allow for only a portion of the parent's income to be countable when we are looking at how much SSI we can pay. So we take into consideration other children in the home, etc. Now, this also applies even if the child is temporarily away at school, as long as they are still subject to parental control. But it does not apply if a child is not in the same household with their parents. So when a child is living in a hospital, or with their grandparents, or in foster care, or with other relatives, we're not looking at parental income. If one of the parents doesn't live in the home, then that parent's income is not considered. And deeming from the parents stops when a child turns age 18. So even if the child still lives at home with their parent, the income from mom and or dad that they live with stops being countable. Or if they get married, it stops being countable, because now you're not dependent on your parent anymore. Now you become a dependent of your spouse. So then we're looking at deeming from your spouse that you just married rather than your parents. So that's the other deeming that I just talked about on the previous slide. But the deeming from parents' income stops at age 18. Now, another leg on the stool is resources. So in order to determine can somebody be eligible for SSI, we have to look at what do they have available to them in resources. So we look at things like all bank accounts, all stocks and bonds and 401ks. We look at how many cars does somebody own, what kind of life insurance policies do they own, what kind of property does somebody own. Does somebody own a home? Do they have more than one home, like a vacation home? Do they own land somewhere that they don't live on? How many cars do they have? Because only one car is excludable in the resources that we allow. We do allow you to have burial plots and resources set aside for burial, but you're not allowed to have an excess amount of cars that are in your name. Those will be countable towards the allowable resource limits. You're allowed to own the home you live in. You're allowed to own one car, but anything above that, we will count towards the resource limits. You're allowed to own life insurance, but if it's not term life insurance, then we will be looking at, is there a cash value to that life insurance while you're alive? And if there is, then we are looking at how much is that cash value, because that is countable towards the resource limit. The resource limits for SSI are extremely low. They have been the same for years and years and years. Now, just like income, there are resources that are deemed from spouses and from parents and from sponsors to non-citizens. So if a child is applying, we will look at what is in the child's name as far as bank accounts, cars, property, life insurance, etc. But we will also look at what is in the parent's name that they live with. So we will have to deem some of those resources to the child. So parental resources could make the child ineligible for SSI until they turn 18. Now, that's only if they live in the same home. So the same rule with like income, only if they live in the same home with their parents. And the same thing applies for spouses. So if somebody's an adult applying 18 or older and they're married, living in the same home, then we are looking at the spouse's resources. The limits you can see on the screen are very low. If it's an adult applying for SSI, all they can have in their name in all of those resources that I just told you is $2,000. And that's at the start of every single month. So if in any month somebody has more than $2,000 in their name or more, they are ineligible for that month for SSI. Now for children, we can increase that limit. If they live with one parent, then the parent gets $2,000 and the child gets $2,000. So now the limit goes up to $4,000 for that child applicant of SSI. But even that is still pretty low. So if mom and child live together and mom has $10,000 in the bank, that child is going to be ineligible for SSI because of the resources that mom has, because we will be deeming those resources to the child. And again, that's only until age 18, but this is again why you hear of children that have to wait until after the age of 18 to apply for SSI, because they're not eligible until they become an adult. And it's not because they're not disabled, it's because of these income resource rules. Okay, now there is an account out there called the ABLE, or the stable accounts. Hopefully you've all heard of these by now. These are fairly new, but they've been around a while. Hopefully you've had speakers talk to you about these accounts. The stable accounts are investment accounts. In Ohio, we call them stable. They're under the Achieving Better Life Experience Act, or ABLE Act. This is where individuals with disabilities can save up to $100,000. And it keeps them from losing certain public benefits like Medicaid and SSI. So this is where you want to be able to put money if somebody's working or trying to save money. Don't put it in a regular bank account at your local bank. You want to put money in these accounts because it doesn't go towards that $2,000 resource limit. It is a investment style account. You can only withdraw for reasons that have to do with disabling conditions. So there are rules with these accounts. It's more like a college savings account, like a 529 account. But when you're trying to save for the future, this is what you want to look at if you don't want to lose these benefits. So read more about stable accounts. Everything's done online. The application and creation process is completely online. Go to www.stableaccount.com or go to our website. You can find out more about them in spotlights that we have online, or our choosework.ssa.gov blog. But you can find more information out there if you want to read more about this. And then the final leg on the stool is living arrangements. So why are living arrangements important? Well, it's another factor that we have to use when we determine how much an SSI payment is. So SSI payments will vary for people depending upon where they live. I know that sounds strange, but it's true. So a living arrangement is where somebody lives and whether or not they pay for their own food or shelter, or whether or not they contribute towards the food and the shelter in the place in which they live. So Social Security has to know who pays for the food and the shelter and who lives in the household. So this is something we keep track of. We usually do redeterminations at least once a year to keep track of this. We tell people to tell us any change in any living arrangement and tell us right away. We want you to tell us within 10 days, anytime anything changes. If somebody moves, if somebody starts contributing more or less to a household, if there's a change in how many people live in the house, if you start purchasing your own food separate from everybody else in the household, if anything changes from the last time you told us what was going on, you want to tell us that there's been a change, because we may be able to change how much we pay you in SSI. Now, how does that even affect SSI? Well, here's just a couple of situations. If somebody lives alone and pays all of their own food and shelter costs, they're probably eligible for the maximum SSI benefit. If somebody lives in somebody else's household, but they contribute what's considered their fair share of the shelter expenses, which is like the rent or the mortgage, the utility bills, and the cost of food, well then again, they're probably eligible for the maximum SSI payment, at least at the start. Now, if they have any other income, we're going to reduce it. But to begin with, we're going to look at, based on living arrangements, we could pay you this amount of SSI. And that's usually the maximum. Now, if somebody lives in somebody else's household, but they don't pay anything to live there, then typically SSI is cut immediately by 1/3. So if I were to live with my parents and they didn't make me pay anything to live there, and I'm 53 years old, then my SSI check is automatically cut by 1/3. No questions asked. Social Security cuts my SSI check by 1/3. And that's the way it is. So that's based on my living arrangement. It has nothing else to do with anything other than that. Now, if I'm able to contribute and pay my fair share of my parents' living expenses, like their mortgage, their utility bills, the cost of food for the household, then maybe I can raise my SSI back up. So if that changes, I need to let Social Security know. And generally, people who live in institutions like a hospital or a nursing home or jail or prison, they're not eligible for SSI. So that's usually a universal truth. But sometimes people get a maximum of $30 a month in some of those situations. So sometimes you'll see people in a nursing home getting $30 a month because Medicaid is paying the cost of their stay. Or sometimes somebody's not been in a hospital for an entire month, from the beginning of the month to the end of the month, so they're still getting a benefit. So there are some nuances there, but typically institutionalization will cause loss of SSI. So that's kind of the gist of SSI. Lots of rules, lots of hoops to jump through. You're only eligible if you have limited income, limited resources. That's the biggest part. And you're either 65 or older, blind, or found to be disabled. And if you're a child, it's not only your income and resources, but it's also your parents that you live with. So that's something that you have to factor in. So if you are a child, you're a child until you're 18. After 18, we can look at taking an application without including the parents to get them out of the mix. All right. So now let's talk about Social Security disability insurance or Title II benefits. So this was that blue bubble that we looked at on one of the very first slides. This is a lot easier to explain because this doesn't have all those hoops to jump through. We don't care what kind of income you have. We don't care what your resources are. You could have $1 million in the bank. Good for you. You worked, you saved your money, and you're set for retirement. That's fine. That's okay with SSDI. SSDI is based on work history. So you qualify for this benefit because you worked. You paid into Social Security. You paid the FICA tax on your wages. So to be eligible, you have to work and pay FICA tax. That's Federal Insurance Contribution Act. And you have to pay that tax on the wages that you made. And you have to earn a minimum amount of credit. Now, some people work, but they don't pay the FICA tax. So there are people out there that could be on this call that work for like the state of Ohio or Hamilton County, for example. Our friend Sean here does not pay the FICA tax. He pays into something called OPERS. So that's a whole different retirement system. If he were to become disabled, he would not apply at Social Security. He would apply for OPERS disability because he doesn't pay the FICA tax on his wages. So there are different systems out there. I am talking about Social Security disability insurance. So to be eligible for our benefit, you have to work and pay the FICA tax on your wages and earn credits. This is also how you become eligible for retirement under our program. In 2023, you earn 1 credit when you make $1,640 under FICA wages. Next year, that goes up, so you have to earn $1,730 next year. You can only earn a maximum of 4 credits per year. So no matter how much money you make, you can only get 4 credits per year. The number of credits that you need depends on how old you are at the time you become disabled. So if you become disabled at a young age, you don't need very many credits because you haven't worked very long. But the older you are, then you need more credits. It's expected that you have worked longer in your life and you have worked and earned more credits in your lifetime. So to become insured for disability insurance is different than to become insured for retirement benefits. Some of you may have heard along the way that to get retirement benefits, you have to have 40 credits. And that's true. You can get those anytime in your lifetime. But that's not how we do disability insurance. So for disability insurance, you have to earn a certain number of work credits based upon your age. So this little chart kind of shows you a breakdown of that. So if you become disabled in or before the quarter that you turn the age of 24, then you basically need to have worked 1.5 years or earned 6 credits. Remember, you can only earn 4 credits a year. So if you've worked 1.5 years, you've earned 6 credits during the 3-year period before you became disabled, okay? So for a 24-year-old, they only have to have earned 6 credits in the 3 years before they became disabled. Somebody that's become disabled between 24 and 31, well, they have to earn more credits than that. It's kind of on a sliding scale. So let me just kind of read this to you. You have to have worked during half the time for the period beginning at age 21 and ending before you became disabled. So between whatever age you are when you became disabled and when you turned 21, you have to have worked half the time in whatever number of years that is. So that would vary depending upon how old you are between 24 and 31. So you might need 12 credits, you might need 13 credits. Okay, so it depends on your age. For everybody else, if you become disabled at age 31 or later, then you have to have been working 5 years out of the 10-year period prior to becoming disabled. So again, very different than retirement eligibility. For retirement, remember, you just had to have 40 credits somewhere in your lifetime, but not for disability. You have to have worked 5 out of the last 10 years when you apply for disability insurance. So a lot of people could get denied based on this. This, again, has nothing to do with, are you disabled? This is just an eligibility criteria. Do you meet the credits that you need for disability insurance? So let's say that I am 53 years old, like I am, and let's say I have not worked anywhere in the last 12 years. I have been a stay-at-home person taking care of my animals, and people have just been taking care of me. Well, now I've hurt my back, and I think I'm disabled, and I go to Social Security to apply because I used to work and pay Social Security. Well, I'm going to get denied. Now, I may very well have a condition that Social Security would approve me for based on my back, but I am over 31 and I have not been working 5 out of the last 10 years. And I just became disabled. So my condition might make me disabled, but I am not going to meet eligibility criteria if I don't have the quarters that I need, which means I am not, quote unquote, insured for disability insurance. So this is a tricky program. It doesn't have all those hoops to jump through like SSI, but it has that hoop to jump through, okay? So sometimes you see people get turned down for disability insurance, and you say, why on earth would you turn them down? Clearly they're disabled. Well, sometimes it's for that reason, and it's not based on their condition. There's a lot of factors involved that people just don't know. Now, when somebody applies for SSDI, there are benefits payable sometimes to their dependents. So dependents include spouses and ex-spouses, minor children under the age of 18, or student children up to the age of 19, and even their adult children if they've been found to be disabled before they turn the age of 22. So a dependent could be eligible to receive a monthly benefit if an applicant who applies for disability becomes entitled, and if they're getting disability insurance or a retirement benefit, then their dependent who is under 18 or under 19 still in high school, or older than that but disabled before 22, could get up to 50% of their benefit. Doesn't take anything away from them. It's just additional money paid out to their dependent. Now, sometimes a parent dies and they have a child that is under 18 or under 19 in high school, or even an adult disabled child. That child could be considered a dependent and could be eligible for up to 75% of that deceased worker's monthly benefit amount. So there are dependent benefits that are potentially payable on that record. Now, that's something very different from SSI. We do not pay benefits to anybody but the applicant from SSI. But from SSDI, we can pay spouses, ex-spouses, children, adult disabled children. So let's talk a little bit more about disabled adult children. You may hear this terminology, DAC, which stands for Disabled Adult Child, or CDB benefits, Childhood Disability Benefits. We use those terms interchangeably. Job and Family Services usually uses one of those terms. We use another. Basically what this is that the SSDI, or Title II program, can pay benefits to an adult who has a disability that began before they became 22 years old. It is considered a child's benefit, even though it's paid to an adult, if it's based on their parent's Social Security work record. So if a child turns the age of 18 and they have a disabling condition and they are already getting a dependent benefit from their parent who is getting disability or retirement benefits, or their parent has died and they're getting survivor benefits, then they can apply to have a medical decision for themselves so that Social Security can determine whether or not that benefit can continue beyond age 18, beyond high school, as a disabled adult child benefit, or a DAC benefit, or a CDB benefit, Childhood Disability Benefit. Now, there are other times where a child never got any benefits off of their parent's record because their parent was not disabled. Their parent was not retired when they were young enough to get benefits. Their parent did not die when they were young enough to get a benefit. But now their parent has become retired, disabled, or passed away, and an adult that has a disability that began before the age of 22 can apply for that child's benefit if their parent is now receiving retirement or disability insurance benefits, or they have passed away before earning enough credit to qualify for Social Security benefits. So there are times when somebody comes in to retire at age 66 or 70 years old, and they tell us on their application, I have a 45-year-old child who's been disabled since birth. At that point, we take that application from the 45-year-old, and if we are able to find them disabled prior to turning 22, we may be able to pay them that childhood benefit we call a disabled adult child off of the parent's record. So even if that adult child of theirs has never worked a day in their life, maybe they're getting SSI, we can switch them off of that SSI program and put them on their parent's record instead. What's the meaning of that? Well, probably going to get more money, getting half of their parent's benefit. They're going to get off the needs-based benefit, so they don't have to tell us anymore what kind of income and resources they have. And they're going to get Medicare. So when you get on SSDI, you get Medicare. Remember, that's because you get those credits that qualify under your parents' record, just like your parents get them. So there's a lot of advantages to the DAC benefit that we want to move people to if we can. So that DAC benefit will continue as long as the child is disabled. So we will do periodic reviews to make sure they meet the conditions of disability. But if a disabled adult child gets married, usually that will affect their eligibility because, again, they're not a dependent of that parent anymore. Now they're a dependent of their spouse, and that can change eligibility. So there are times when they marry another disabled adult child that maybe their eligibility continues, but we'd have to look at that case by case. So just want to bring that forward to you so that you have that in your toolkit. All right, so let's talk about application and disability determination. To apply, I really want to encourage people again to go online, go to www.ssa.gov. Right on our homepage, it looks just like this. Click on Apply for Benefits. Tell us whether you're applying for an adult or a child. Again, an adult is anybody age 18 or over. If it's an adult applying, they really need to be with you when the application is being made. You can apply on behalf of someone, but there are rules with that. I'll talk about that in just a minute. Children are under the age of 18. So once you tell us who you're applying for, then there's a drop-down menu for you to kind of go through a decision tree and give us more information, and it'll walk you through the process. Your option is to call 1-800-772-1213, schedule an appointment. It will take 60 days or so usually before an office can get you in for an appointment. Now, we will hold the date you call us as your application date. So we're not giving away all of that time, but it might make us, or it might take us that much time to actually talk to you on the phone to take your interview or to take all the information from you. So if you're able to do things yourself online, we would encourage you to do that so you don't have to wait. But if you can't, that's fine. Just call us to schedule the interview. Now, this is one of the screens you're going to see if you do things online. It's going to say, who is completing this application? So your two options are, I'm applying for myself, or I'm helping somebody who's not here with me. And if they're not here with me, they can't sign the application. So if you click, I am applying for myself, you could be filling out all the information and your 18-year-old child could be sitting next to you. That's okay. They don't have to be doing the typing. As long as they are involved in the process and they know that you're doing this for them, they can attest their signature to all of the forms that come with the online application. But if they're not sitting there with you, you really cannot sign those applications or the medical release for them. Then you would need to pick the second option. I am helping somebody that's not with me. When that happens, then you will submit forms to us online telling us somebody wants to apply. But we will have to mail a paper application out to the applicant to physically sign and send back to us. Now, they can sign it with an X or a mark of some kind if they need to, and you can witness it and they can send it back. But we would have to go that route if you mark that second option. Now, I do need to also say, if you pick the first option, then we are assuming that this is an adult that's 18 or older applying for themselves, and our application will require them to create a My Social Security account. And again, if this is a young adult, they may have difficulty creating a My Social Security account. So if that happens and you still want to do things online, then go back, pick the second option. I am helping somebody who's not with me, and go ahead and submit everything to us online. We will mail out the paper application. You can still do things online and you can bypass that My Social Security thing. But try it first, see if you can't create the account so that you don't have to hold things up waiting on paper to be mailed out. Now, if you're filling out an application for a child that's under the age of 18, you're not going to get that screen that says you have to create a My Social Security account. That's only for adults. But what I do need to caution you on is that you will get this screen. And it says you can complete the child disability report online, but you have to contact us to finish the SSI application. So right now, the online application for SSI is kind of a hybrid, if you will. You can do part of it online, but you can't do all of it online yet. So all you can do online is fill out the medical report that tells us all of the important stuff about the medical conditions, the doctors that the child sees, the medications they take, the schools they attend, all of that you can do online in the comfort of your own home. But the application itself, you need to call Social Security when you're done, and the number is right there on the screen, and set up a telephone interview. They will set the interview up with you usually fairly quickly and call you at a certain date and time that you arrange, and it takes maybe 15, 20 minutes, if that long, and they will ask you some income and resource questions and living arrangement questions and finish the application. So again, with children's applications, there's just a little bit different that you have to do than with adults. With adults, everything is done online. With children, you've got to go that extra step. Again, if you don't want to do anything online at all, whether it's an adult or a child, just call us and we'll set everything up over the phone. You can help people apply online, but keep in mind, once somebody is an adult, all adults for Social Security are 18 or older. Because of federal privacy laws, we have to work only with the adult unless there is legal guardianship involved. We do not accept power of attorney at Social Security. And you know, your child could have turned 18 today. So you may not have legal guardianship established already today. So yesterday we could have talked to you and today we can't. So those are just the way the rules are set up. Now, we can talk to you if your child is present, because your child just needs to identify themselves and give us permission to talk to you. So we can get around some of these rules, but your 18-year-old needs to be involved in the process. You just can't do things on their behalf unless there's guardianship involved. We have our own in-house representative payee system once somebody has been found eligible for benefits and we start payment of benefits, then we will make somebody representative payee, and that way we can work with that representative payee instead of the beneficiary when we need to do that if there's no legal guardian. Hopefully you're already looking at legal guardian stuff if that's an issue for you down the road. We do have consent forms that you can get on our website. We will need those moving forward. If somebody is getting benefits and you need to talk to Social Security without the beneficiary around if they are an adult. So we have consent to release information that we usually will need signed by the beneficiary that gives us permission to talk to you. Even though you're their parent, we still will need this. And sometimes people actually get appointed as a representative. Now, this is usually an attorney that does this, but sometimes people will do this that are not attorneys, non-attorneys, I should say, not people, non-attorneys. Okay, so those are online. You can take a look at those forms if you want to check those out. All of our forms have a form number. After we take an application, we send these claims up to what we call a state agency, where all medical decisions are made. So the local Social Security offices here locally don't make any medical decisions. The staff that you work with in the local offices simply take the applications. Then we send everything, once we've gathered everything, to the state agency to make a medical decision. Social Security contracts with state agencies in all different states to make the decisions. In Ohio, that's Opportunities for Ohioans with Disabilities in Columbus. Most medical decisions get made within 4 to 6 months, sometimes much faster than that, sometimes slower than that. So please be prepared for a lengthy wait, unfortunately, for a medical decision. Now, this is outside of our processing time in the office. So usually from start to finish, you know, it's going to be within that time frame. That 4 to 6 months usually incorporates, I should say, our time in the local office. So that's usually from start to finish. Now, DDS, which is the Disability Determination Services, which is the OOD, usually will take over. Once we send the claim to them, then they are the ones that contact all the medical providers, they obtain medical records, they make the medical decision. They may reach out to you, the applicant or the parent of the applicant, and ask for additional information. They may need additional forms signed or filled out. Sometimes they want to know more about how the conditions affect daily activities. They may send paperwork to you to fill out and send back. Make sure you're following through with whatever it is they're asking you to do. They could deny the claim based on not cooperating. Some applicants are required to go to consultative exams with local doctors. You don't have to pay for that, but you do have to go to the appointment. So if they set up an appointment for you to go or for the applicant to go, you gotta go. Otherwise, again, they can deny the claim because you didn't go to the appointment. So if you need to reschedule those or whatever, make sure you're working with that state agency to get all of that taken care of. We never send claims to the state agency for medical decisions if people are not potentially eligible for these benefits. So if somebody doesn't meet the most basic requirement for SSI, we will not get a medical decision. So if somebody applies for SSI, but they tell us that they have $10,000 in the bank, we're not getting a medical decision for them. We cannot. If somebody applies for SSDI, but they do not have any work behind them, they do not have any credits, or they don't have the right number of credits, we will not send their claim to the state agency for a medical decision. So we cannot just make medical decisions just because somebody wants one. We can only send them if somebody is potentially eligible if they're found to be disabled. So that's something important that we need to make sure we tell you. So people always want to know, how is the decision made? Well, this is an important tool for you to go look at. This is a book that's only available on the web. It used to be printed, so we call it the Social Security Blue Book because it was blue at one time. It's called Disability Evaluation under Social Security. So this is how Social Security is making its medical decisions. And this is really good for you to go look at and read and understand the whole process from beginning to end. You know, what's it look like from the field office when you first apply all the way through the state agency. This will give you a really good understanding of the disability program. It gives you specific criteria of what Social Security is looking at. If you look at part 3 of the book, it gives you actual listings of impairments. And this describes the impairments that are considered severe enough that prevent people from doing what we consider gainful activity or work. Remember, I talked about that early on, or that cause marked and severe functional limitations in children. So when people are found meeting a listing in these books or in this book, then they're usually eligible for disability. So this is something that you want to go look at. So I gave you the link on this slide here, but you can just go into our website, ssa.gov, and type in Blue Book, and it'll pull up, or go into the publications section and type in Blue Book, and you'll find it. And you can look through there and look at all the different listings of impairments. You can look up your own particular or your child's and look at what it is Social Security is looking at to find your child or you disabled under Social Security. And here's a little bit more about how the disability determination is made. If it's an adult, they're looking at a 5-step sequential review that's looking at a person's work activity, the severity of the person's impairment, whether or not their impairment meets or equals one of those listings that I just talked about in that book, the person's ability to perform any past work that they've done before, or maybe they have an ability to do other relevant work that they've done before. For children, they're going to be looking at any current work activity, if there is any, the severity of their impairment, and whether or not their impairment meets or medically or functionally equals one of the listings in that book. So again, check out that Blue Book I think you'll find a lot of really good information there to help you understand how Social Security is working to find people disabled. As Social Security is working to find disabilities, you'll read in that book that sometimes there are very quick disability determinations made for some. There are presumptive conditions for some that qualify for SSI payments right away and for up to 6 months, while Disability Determination Services continues to decide whether or not somebody can keep getting those SSI payments. So some people, just based on their allegation of what kind of medical condition they have, allows us to start SSI payments immediately. And we call those presumptive conditions. You can look at the full list online. You'll find those in that blue book, but you'll also just find them on our website. Again, just type in presumptive conditions or that specific link that I've got for you on this slide. But some of those conditions you see there: total blindness, total deafness, somebody with muscular dystrophy, Down syndrome. We see premature birth weight babies that we can pay presumptive conditions. Sometimes people with amputated limbs. So there are different conditions that we can pay immediate payments without getting medical records. Compassionate allowances is another way that Social Security quickly identifies people with the most serious medical conditions, so that we can make immediate payments to people rather than them having to wait. Remember, I told you it could take up to 4 to 6 months for some people to get disability insurance or SSI. So people who have certain cancers, late stage cancers, terminal illnesses, brain disorders, rare disorders that affect children. These types of conditions that typically meet by definition Social Security's standards for a disability benefit, these are considered compassionate allowances. There is a long list of compassionate allowances out there. Again, you can find them on our internet site or that link that I've got for you on this slide. If somebody has one of those, once they type that into our smart system, when you apply online or when we take your application over the telephone, our software picks up on that and it lets our DDS know that in Columbus, and it expedites these claims to a fast track unit to make sure that these claims are expedited. And when I say expedited, I mean expedited. I have seen people with terminal cancer apply in the morning and be approved the same day. So there are some folks that get immediate decisions. Other people wait 10 days, 20 days, a week, a month. It depends, but certainly compassionate allowances usually are much faster than 4 to 6 months. So it's usually people with our most serious conditions. Now, sometimes people get denied, and I'm sure you've all heard people say that they've been denied. If you were denied for a medical reason, you have the right to file an appeal, but you don't have forever. You only have 60 days to file an appeal from the date that's on your decision notice. So whether you're approved or denied, you get a letter from Social Security saying you've been approved or denied and why and what the next step is. So make sure you are filing an appeal if you are denied and you disagree. This maintains the application date so that it continues the process. There are several levels of appeal. So sometimes people go into the years of an appeal process, sometimes not. Sometimes it's just a couple of months. It just depends on how far into the appeals process people go. But this is how you hear about people getting back pay because they were denied once or twice or so many times, and then finally they were approved, and now Social Security owes them money all the way back to the date they originally applied 2 years ago or whatever it may be. You can apply online for an appeal, or you can contact us, schedule an interview for an appeal. So again, just go on the website, ssa.gov, you'll find all that information about appealing. And just a quick note for you about post-eligibility. So post-eligibility means somebody now has been medically approved and now they're eligible. What happens now? So if you are medically approved, you're going to get a letter or sometimes you get phone calls from Social Security. And I know a lot of people are leery, and that's okay, be leery. But there are times that we do work overtime or we work late into the evening, like right now, and we are working to make phone calls and do things like that, where we will try to get people in their off time to do things. And sometimes that means we will call you. So don't hesitate to say, I don't believe you, but sometimes we can, give you enough information over the phone that you believe that we are us. But if we need more information from you, we will reach out to you. If you get medically approved, sometimes we need more information before we can pay the claim. Sometimes we need to appoint a representative payee before we can pay any benefits. And that's if somebody is determined to be maybe not capable to manage their own money. So that's something that could hold up us making payments directly if somebody gets approved. People who get SSI, we usually have to do non-medical redeterminations every year so that we can keep track of verifying income, resources, and living arrangements. We always have to keep track of that sort of thing because those can always change the amount of somebody's SSI. So you hear about people being over and underpaid on SSI all the time because they're not telling us properly whether or not they've gotten a new job, or they've quit, or they've started a new job, or they moved, or they didn't move, or somebody moved in or out. All of these things that change can change the amount of SSI. You have to keep us up to date. And both SSI and SSDI beneficiaries are required to complete periodic continuing medical reviews. So don't be afraid of those. These are important. Every 3 years, every 5 years, every 7 years. It just depends on the diary that is established on your record, how often the state agency wants to do a review of your medical condition. So that depends on how likely it is your medical condition will improve. So some people are reviewed every year, some people once every 10 years. It just depends. But basically, information is mailed out to you. You are told you have to respond. If you fail to respond, you're going to lose your benefits. If you do respond, you could lose your benefits if you're not found to be disabled anymore. But if you're still meeting our definition of disability, then your benefits continue on like they always have. So that will happen every so often, every so many years, whatever your factor is, depending upon your medical condition. And finally, can someone work and still receive disability? Yes. So there's a lot of myths out there that, I could never work again because I'll lose my disability if I do. That's not true. There are work incentives that make it possible for people to test their ability to work. And they can test it and not necessarily lose benefits. Now, sometimes they lose part of their benefit, like maybe they lose the cash benefit, but they don't lose their Medicare or their Medicaid. And they're okay with that because they're working, so they're getting money. And all they really want anymore is the insurance. The rules are different, whether they're working and getting Title II, SSDI, or they're working and getting Title 16, SSI. So it depends, which benefit are you getting? So don't just listen to your friend who is working and still gets whatever they get, because your benefit could be completely different from them. So the rules are very different. The work incentives are very different between the two benefits. For more information about that, go look at what we call the Red Book. So again, this book used to be published. Now it's only online, and it's called the Red Book. It's a summary guide to employment supports for people with disabilities under the Social Security Disability Insurance and SSI program. So you can get it right on our website or at the link that I've given you on the slide here. Now I can make all these slides available so that you guys can have a copy of these. I can send a PDF copy of these to Sean, and he can send these out to whoever he wants to. Or I think he was recording this, so you can go back and watch this as many times as you want on wherever he uploads this to. So the red book is something for you to look at if you're interested in working, getting disability benefits, whether it's SSI or SSDI benefits. But what you have to know is the work incentives are very different depending upon which benefit you get, and will you lose your benefit or not lose your benefit? How much can you make and how much can you not make, and all that kind of thing. So that's a whole presentation on its own. I just wanted to tell you about the work that you could do if you wanted to. So that's what I have for you tonight. I am happy to take whatever questions anybody has, or if I put you all to sleep, now's the time to wake up. Sean, I'll hand it back over to you.
I'm having some issues with getting unmuted here. Any
okay.
From anyone? Can you hear me, Kelly?
I can hear you.
Oh, great. Any questions from anyone? I'm going to look in the chat just to double check and see if there are any questions.
Yeah, if somebody doesn't want to unmute themselves, feel free to type something in chat if you like. I can watch that and answer whatever questions. If you're not comfortable asking questions in this forum, I think you probably can get your questions to Sean, and he certainly has my contact information. He can reach out to me, and I can, get answers back to you that way. Again, you can watch this presentation over and over and over again. Hopefully I gave you some good information.
Oh, that was great information. You did a fabulous job. Will I be able to share this slide with the families?
Sure. I'll send you a PDF version so you can send it out to whoever you need to. That's why we always try to just make sure we tell people, it's accurate now, but those numbers that I've got in there could change. Right. I don't expect them to, because we've got 2024's numbers in there, but you just never know. Who knows what's going to change,
Most definitely.
Yeah.
I don't know if we have any questions or not.
Doesn't look like anybody's typing anything.
Brianne does.
Yeah, no, I talk with a lot of families about what this is. I'm a transition person, so I work with this age range going through here, and I get a lot of these questions, and I understood everything you said, and I'm confident in what I'm telling them. So I was really happy I could follow it. And our internal person, Teresa, has done a great job educating us also. So I'm passing on the right information. That makes me happy.
Teresa, I'm drawing what's her last name?
Schlemmer.
Yes, I do know her. Yeah, she's really good. She sends claims to us all the time under a partnership that we have. So we work with her a lot. So she's a good asset for you guys. That's for sure. Yeah, I mean, with the transition age, I tried to say it a little bit there. The whole age 18 thing is a big factor with SSI. Until age 18, we care about mom and dad's income and resources if they live in the same home. So a lot of times mom and dad have to wait to apply for their child, but their child is no longer a child at age 18. So now child is an adult. So the adult has to apply at age 18. Mom and dad can help them, but that adult is going to have to do it for themselves or with the assistance of mom and dad. But they have to wait until the month after the month they turn 18. So we still look at somebody being 18 the entire month that they reach age 18. So you're not really older than that until the month after you reach 18. So it's just one of the weird nuances with Social Security. You probably already know that, but just in case. Yeah.
All right.
Well, I don't see anybody else asking questions. We can give you like 8 minutes back of your evening.
Right, exactly. Well, thank you so much again, Kelly. This has been awesome. It's been a long time. It's been about 2 years.
You're welcome. So hopefully one of these days we'll get back out there in person to you. It's been a long time since I've been out there.
Most definitely. Maybe next year we can do like one in person and one webinar, you know?
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah. Because
Absolutely.
there are still some people who like the in-person stuff.
Oh, most definitely. Most
Yeah.
definitely.
Well, have happy holidays, everybody.
Hey, same to you. Take care, everyone.
And I'll get a PDF over to you, Sean. You can send it out.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. And Brianne, tell Teresa I said hello. Thanks, everybody, for joining us.